a.m. we have Kami is out. We have Rick Brahma coming in to fill in and lead the team meeting, but I thought I'd get you all started because we all know how much I love to do this. Hi everyone on Zoom.
I want to double check that everyone on Zoom can hear.
Oh yeah, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I heard Lydia. So I can see who's there. Cool. I thought we'd start with bucket fills. Anybody on Zoom? Anyone in here got some bucket fills?
I've got one.
Oh, who is that? I can't see.
All right, it's Maureen.
Maureen, I'd love to hear it.
So I want a bucket fill. Azarea and Danielle and Corinne, they all donated to my Ragnar that I'm doing this weekend to benefit the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And so I'll be running from St. Paul to Duluth on Friday. And they all donated to the cause. So it was so nice to see support from my work family.
Oh, that's super exciting. That is nice to see that.
Maureen, can I ask you a question? I might have missed, did you post that on Facebook or something? Because I missed that.
Oh yeah, I can repost. Yeah, I've been posting things on Facebook about it. I can repost it, sure.
It has not come up in my Facebook feed, but I will look for it.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, all right. We will take a look for it. Anybody else? Bucket fills? Bucket fills?
I got one. Can
you have a microphone? Can you guys hear, like, did you hear Wendy talking and?
Yep, we can hear it all good.
Yay!
I'll bucket fill Kevin because he was really kind of pushing us to like go through our numbers this morning coaching to get us prepared for Jake's class tomorrow, and it was really fun to just break it down nitty gritty. So it was good.
Cool. Always, good to know your numbers. That's what we do at the ALC all the time. I see Rick walking by. Bucket fills, another one, all bucket fill. Katie, Lydia, Joey, Pepka came in and we all had training on the tech in here. So hopefully the sound's a little better. We now have you on the screens. We can share stuff on the screens. I think we've got it all figured out. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Awesome. I want to thank Sherry Welly and Derek Steinbach who are going to let me do open houses at their listings this weekend. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Awesome. I saw on Facebook Ashley needed help with showings tonight, or was it last night? I don't know. I wonder if anyone was able to help her. I didn't see it. So if anyone wants to reach out to Ashley, I'm not sure, is she on or if she still needs the help? I'm not 100%. So
I have a bucket fill.
Oh, who is that? Who?
Danielle.
Danielle? All right. Let's hear it, Danielle.
I have one for Jacob. He helped Ryan and I yesterday with doing some stuff on command. So thank you, Jacob, for helping us. We really appreciate it.
Nice. Thank you. Did you hear that, Jacob?
Yeah, and I actually have I have a bucket fill as well, actually.
Okay.
I want to throw one out for Lydia and for the entire office staff. Whenever we need something done, like it's just submitting a coming soon or withhold or anything, it always gets done no matter what. And sometimes I feel like we forget that is consistently happening in the background, but it does make things a lot easier when that is like something we can rely on, because there's lots of things you can't rely on in real estate. So knowing that every time we submit an input form or whatever, you guys are going to have it done is very, very helpful to us. And I can tell you, we really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much for all of that. And that's everybody on the office staff for sure, which means a lot to us. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yep, I agree. Lydia is on top of those.
I have one more.
Ooh, Maddie has one. Madeline has one.
I just want to bucket fill Paigey. We had a last minute meeting with a buyer, and he scrambled and rearranged his schedule to be there and help give me some insight on some investment side and help me find some good information and paperwork for her. So yeah, that was super helpful last night.
All right, Rick. come up?
Already?
Yeah, or well, do you want to do announcements or no? What's next on? I don't know.
We do have a couple
numbers
announcements.
Okay.
So, Mega Camp is coming up really quick. We're very excited about it. Yes, I can. Oh, I didn't know if they could hear me because they could hear Heather, but I'm happy. So I know most of you are signed up. Is there anyone in this room that's not signed up for Mega Camp? Maybe a couple. We have Mega Camp in-person event happening next Tuesday and Wednesday at Minneapolis Marriott West. It's going to be an all-day event. We're broadcasting a whole series of things from Austin, their Mega Camp, right? But we have our own kind of events and activations that are happening as a part of that too. So please keep track. There's emails headed out. There's already been a couple this week, but there'll be more headed out to you guys about what that all entails and what to expect. If you are not signed up, I would encourage you to sign up before Thursday because that will be the last price increase. Tickets will go, back up tomorrow. So make sure to buy your tickets now if you would like. And it's going to be a really fun event. We have 210 agents signed up. And, obviously and counting. And we have, I think, 21 vendors now confirmed. For our regional Mega Camp, like I said, we're doing some activations. So Tuesday morning, we have a yoga class that everyone can come to. It's open to all levels of experience, but it's really about refocusing and realigning your mind to get ready for the conference. Then Tuesday night, we have our Punch Bowl Social event. That's a happy hour put on by our platinum sponsors. So Profile Transaction and New American Funding and Minnesota Title are throwing a big happy hour event for us at Punch Bowl Social. And then also on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., we are opening up with a scripting session. It might even be a little competitive. We might be calling it a script off. So it should be really, really fun. That particularly is going to be an awesome time to kind of just be able to brainstorm with agents from all across the region, from outside of even our own market center, seeing what works and what doesn't, and what's been working in this current market. So whole schedule of events and all of that is always still headed your way. I'll send a few more emails, but if you have specific questions about any of it, please just get in touch. I will also be posting a few of those details on our Facebook social pages, so look there. And just as a note that all of these events require tickets. So if you are signed up for in-person Mega Camp with us, you are invited to everything. Otherwise, you still need a ticket to gain entrance, right? One important thing that I wanted to mention about the 2 days is that there are breakout sessions. So in the morning, it's scheduled where there is quite a bit of time with Gary Keller, mega agent panel discussion. Mo Anderson is speaking, but in the afternoon after lunch, we're doing breakout sessions. So what that means is there's going to be 12 classes that are offered over the course of the 2 days, 2 breakout sessions a day, 3 classes per day, right? During those breakout sessions, you have the option to choose one class of the 3 to attend. Just sent out an email yesterday with the details of what those breakout session classes are with a little description of each of them. I would highly encourage you to look over those in advance to the day, because I know that these conferences can get kind of busy, to make sure that you're really looking at it and deciding the right class for you, where you're at with your business right now, how you want to improve, what's going to make the most value for you out of it. So look through those, do some research, and have an idea of what classroom you're going to want to go into, because we will be broken up into 3 rooms at that point. If you have any additional questions about breakout sessions or rooms, let me know. And please make note that if there's a couple of sessions that you're in between, or there's one that's not being offered from us, you can actually have access to all of the recordings of all of the breakout sessions for 60 days after Mega Camp with your ticket. So you could go and watch every single breakout session to your heart's content. So don't be too worried if you feel like you have to choose between 2. Just make the decision that feels best for you, and you can go back and watch the second class on your own time. Okay. The only other thing that we have, oh yes,
Should I go
there,
forward?
yes, thank you, Heather.
Just with the arrow?
There's one more class that we wanted to talk about tomorrow. Jake Lurs is coming in to present effective goal setting and self-leadership. This is gonna be a really cool class. I don't know the last time that Jake taught a class. I have been here since March, and he has not taught a class that I know of since then. But this class is gonna be pretty focused and pretty intentional, kind of walking through what self-leadership looks like, adding that to business principles, models that we've been using, right, like 411, and kind of then giving you tools to, in that class, walk through and create some things during that time period to then walk away with and implement. So I highly, highly encourage anyone who is able to please attend. It's actually going to be here in our market center in this training room tomorrow at 1 p.m. And it's an all Butler group class. We have about 45 people, I think, registered at the moment. There is an Eventbrite link. I will send it out after this team meeting so that you can go ahead and register. You're available to view on Zoom if you would like, but I know, especially for a class like this, there's going to be a lot of really awesome discussion happening and a lot of people contributing throughout the conversation that it's going to make a difference to be here in person if you can be. So look for that link. Make sure to sign up for the class tomorrow once again at 1 p.m. with Jake. Cool. And now we're going to have Rick come up and he's going to walk us through. Thank you so much, Rick, for volunteering to do that. We have a couple microphones.
Yeah, did we fix it so I don't need a microphone or what?
No, if you talk up, no, they can hear on
They
Zoom.
should be able to hear you out of
Can you guys hear me okay on Zoom?
Lydia just said yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So I was just asked if I could step in and take over where Tammy left off. What was it, last week? Where we were talking about the process?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Was it 2 weeks ago? That's why I don't remember everything.
Because numbers last.
Yeah, so she just approached me yesterday at like 4 o'clock, so just give me a little bit of time to warm up here and get into it. So I am gonna actually ask for a little bit of help, people with better memories, to get us back to where we were, because we were talking about the entire process, is that correct?
I think we were talking from, well, originally I think it started from lead gen and then what happens, but then I think we switched from an actual, when you first write like a buyer contract.
Yep.
To closing.
Okay,
And what you can do for your client during that time to keep the touches and everything.
okay,
And so I
so,
think obviously we ended on the inspection. You were saying, what would you do during the inspection progress? Mainly to keep with your client, right? To keep a good contact with your client and provide excellent service to your client.
okay. So did we walk through the inspection process? You guys remember covering the inspection process? Like what that looks like how do you prepare your client for the that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think we
inspection.
really went through the
Okay.
inspection process.
Okay, the inspection's great. I mean, that is something that, so in the room, raise your hand if you've been through an inspection. Okay, that's good. So we got like 3/4 of the room is saying that they've been through an inspection. As agents, do you attend the inspection with your clients? You do, yes? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so-
synopsis.
What's that?
Just the like recap.
Just a summary. Okay, so Wendy did say something that's very important in being prepared for our clients. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that our responsibility is to be a real estate agent. Our responsibility is not to be an inspector. It's not to be a title representative. It's not to be a closer. Our responsibility is to be a real estate agent. So it is important to let the inspector be an inspector, right? But at the same time, if you want to know and learn in this business about houses, probably the very best thing you can do is attend an inspection. You know, so I've attended every single one that my clients have ever done. So I've been to over 500 of them, only because I want to have firsthand experience of what exactly is the problem so that I can then figure out a way to resolve it. Does that make sense? Okay. So Paige, why do you go to the inspections?
I just exactly what you said is that I learned.
Okay.
But then I also have a better.
You have a mic right there.
One, I learned what.
You learned you need to use a mic. That's good.
Right. It takes a while. But I learned about houses, but then I also I'm able to control my clients' emotions about what's important, what's not.
Okay.
And I can direct them to the best solution, like you said.
Okay, that's great. So in doing that, is it best for us to wait until the inspection has been performed and we've been through the summary before we discuss anything with our clients related to the inspection? Or should we set expectations and prepare them for what's going to potentially happen in the inspection, then respond? Which is better? Set expectations. So what are we doing to set expectations for our clients before we do an inspection? This is important, right? An inspection is important because what do we know? The number one thing that goes wrong in a real estate transaction is what? The loan, mortgage, finance. Okay, that's the number one potential for something going wrong is financing failing. Okay, number two, inspection. Number two is inspection. And then of course, as part of financing, which becomes number three, is the appraisal, right? Which that's the next part of the process. So how are we preparing our clients for an inspection? What are some of the things that we're saying to them? What should they expect? Adrian?
Well, first of all, I always tell the client that just remember that you're hiring a inspector to find problems. So they will tell you all the problems they see.
Yep.
Now we have to prioritize those.
Okay.
Some are going to be important if it comes to safety issues.
Okay.
If they are a FHA buyers, then I tell them about we need to make sure that the issues we ask or the important issues will be the ones that the FHA will have an issue with.
Okay. Or VA.
Or
Same.
VA, right? And so I kind of set the expectation that we're going to go through these together, and then we're going to X out anything that is minor versus, and then highlight the major ones that are going to be an issue.
Okay, so the only thing that I want to address is that Paige says minor and Paige says major, right? What are those? This is a wide open, completely massive gray area, right? So it's really important to be, right? It's really important to be in a position where our clients understand what to expect. Okay, so I'm just going to present a very, very short script. This is something that I would say every single time to a client, exactly this, and I don't change it very much. And then I'm looking for some feedback. There's a lot of really experienced agents that are on Zoom who have been through a lot of inspections. So the first thing that I would encourage people to not do is attend an entire inspection. Your clients, in my opinion, should never attend an entire inspection for two reasons. One, they get in the way of the inspector, and two, they will get overwhelmed. I don't know a human being who's not a licensed contractor who won't get overwhelmed by the amount of information that's transferred. And there's so much transferred that they're not going to be able to discern what's important and what's not important. That's just a recommendation, right? So, Paige, we're going to go out and we're going to buy a house. This is your first house. You never bought a house before because you're so young, right? You're just getting married, super exciting. And so, Paige, before we do the inspection, there's a couple of things. Yeah. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure that you are prepared for as we go into the inspection. First of all, thank you for deciding to work with the inspector that I recommend, because we worked with the same gentleman for about 6 years, and we find that he does do a really good job. So Jeff Carlson will be doing a great job for you. We are going to be looking for three things in this inspection, okay? First, we're looking for anything that's hazardous. Hazardous, like a GFCI outlet that doesn't work. So you drop the hairdryer into the sink and you get electrocuted and you die. That's a problem, right? Off-gassing of carbon monoxide in a furnace, that's another hazard. So hazard is number one. Number two, we're looking for things that are extraordinarily expensive that we are not aware of. Okay, so you and I already talked about the roof. You looked at the roof and you're like, there's moss on the roof and we know, so we're gonna offer 10,000 less because we know the roof's a problem. We saw that, right? So that's gonna be set aside and we're gonna focus on anything unknown. For example, if we find out the chimney's bad and it's gonna cost $8,000 to fix the chimney, that's an unknown expense that's extraordinary that we're gonna learn, okay? And the third thing is when you guys buy a house, you expect that the house functions. So we want things to generally operate. So if the disclosure says that all the windows operate and we go to the inspection and one of them doesn't, that's something that we might be asking the sellers for. Does this sound reasonable? Okay, that's it. So then we go through the inspection and we follow up with them afterwards, okay? So what's the process after the inspection is done? What do you do next? You've got, let's just lay this out. You have a 7-day inspection period. You did the inspection on day 2. What happens after that, guys? After the inspection's over, you went to it with your client. The inspector says tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll send you the report. What do we do next? Are there any realtors on Zoom? Anyone?
While we're waiting for the report,
Well, after we get the report, what's the next step?
review it.
Okay,
Kinda obvious. Sorry.
review. So the non-realtor in the room says review the report. Not a bad idea. Okay. Daisy, anyone? Jordan, what do you do?
Go over the items that are problematic.
The
Okay.
3 that you listed?
Okay, so how are you doing that? Are you, as the licensed realtor, providing your agent a recommended amendment? You know, something that you might propose to the seller? Or are you waiting for your client to review the inspection report, which is 37 pages long, and then write you a list of what they want taken care of? Which way are you doing that? I'm just curious.
I personally write the amendment and tell them this is what I suggest we go forward. Do you agree with me? Or is there something that you would like me to, or something else that you'd like us to discuss?
Okay, raise your hand if you like that idea. Okay, the majority of the room raise their hand, they do like that idea. People on Zoom, anybody do it differently? Do you wait for your client? Jacob is nodding his head as he likes that. The desserts, I presume, probably write their amendment and recommend it to their client and wait for their client to respond. Is that correct, Jacob?
Yep. Usually we'd have a quick conversation about, before drafting the amendment, they'd have a very quick conversation, like 5-10 minutes on the phone, like, hey, here are the big things we thought were there. Here, what respects seem reasonable to request, things like that. And then after that, we draft the amendment and send it, just to save us from having to make 2 amendments and fiddle with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if we did the other way on occasion too, because who knows what those guys are doing some days.
Yep. Who knows what they're doing some days. So now there are 2 different options here. Okay. One, if you've just started in the business, you're relatively new at it, and you've gone through your first or second inspection, you may not have the expertise to say, oh, this is exactly what I recommend. Okay. We are at Keller Williams. This is one of those times when you reach out to Christy. Is she on? Okay. Reach out to Christy because she will tell you exactly what you should be asking for and whatnot. If you can't get her, then reach out to Derek, reach out to Tony, reach out to Shane, reach out to Paigey, reach out to Jordan, reach out to myself and ask. This is one of these times, and this is why we're here at Keller. This is one of the times in the transaction where a lot of people will need help. And this, I feel like it's a really good opportunity for you to show a high level of expertise with your client when you're making recommendations to them. Now, are you acting as an inspector? No. Are you telling them you shouldn't buy this house because we have a problem with asbestos? No, that's not your responsibility. You're going to recommend how you have that addressed with the seller. And when they see you as that expert, that may help you in the next parts of the process as we proceed. Does that make sense? Yeah, which is great. So, okay, so we draft an amendment.
I think you obviously need to walk your clients through what their options are as well. So obviously you present them, say, hey, here's the things that stuck out in my mind. Make sure obviously we're asking what their opinions are, because every every client's a little different on what's going to be, you know, a risky or a concern for them, right? So every client's gonna have a little different perception on that, but then walk them through those items and what are your options? Okay, guys, here's our options. We can, you know, we can talk about a price reduction, we can talk about closing costs, or we can have them fix it, which is all gonna vary by item, but they need to understand, you know, as you approach those items, do we ask for $1,000 for this and you guys take care of that repair afterwards? Or is this something we want repaired and completed prior to you guys closing on this home? And that's which route you go and which route is best is going to be very dependent on what item we're looking at.
Very good. I like that. Thank you.
And also FHA can come into play too, right? But that's a whole nother ballgame.
Yep, that's an appraiser, not an inspector, but yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
see, that's from the
comes a little bit later.
non-real.
So that's good. So now we move to the next step. Okay, so let's move forward on this. So the next step is that we have now drafted an amendment, and that amendment has been negotiated with our client, right? Because we're constantly negotiating, even with our own clients. That has been negotiated with our client. We have decided, let's just say that we've decided to ask the seller to repair 3 items. And we've also asked them for $2,000 towards buyer's closing costs so that you have more money in your pocket as a buyer to address some of the other items, okay? So we got that amendment put together. Now, do we then send that amendment along with the full inspection report to the buyer's agent? Okay, Paige says no. Wendy says no. Jordan says, I don't know. Okay, if you are a listing agent and you receive a full inspection report, should you open it and read it? No. Why would you not want to know everything? You're the listing agent. It's the house you're selling. Why would you not read a 38-page report as a listing agent?
You have to disclose whatever you know about the home.
Who was that? Jacob?
Hi.
Jacob.
What did
Again?
What did you say?
You have to disclose everything you know about the home as the listing agent. And if you don't know it, you don't have to disclose it. Right?
Yes. So are we avoiding responsibility by not reading that? I would say no. Are you protecting yourself against the absolute necessity that if you as a licensed realtor, this does not hold true for the seller does not have to disclose everything. That is entirely up to them. The realtors do. A realtor is required to disclose any material facts that we know about the property that could affect the future buyer. And that could be literally everything on that inspection report, because if it is not an arbitrary claim that something might be wrong and it's actually a fact. Look, there's a crack in the foundation. Look, there's a broken window. Those are material facts, so we must disclose those. So let's turn ourselves back to the buyer's agent. We're going to present this amendment to the listing agent. Are you just going to send it over and text them, said I sent the amendment, please sign it? That's it? No explanation, no phone call, nothing? What are we going to do as realtors to do a good job so that we can get past this very, very important hurdle and obstacle in the transaction? Go ahead, Pat. Can you hand him a mic?
Hand here.
This is Pat Loney, commercial realtor extraordinaire.
Yeah. So you just hand carry it and be assured that they received it and they're gonna look at it.
Okay.
So you know that it was delivered, he has it.
Okay, so that's one thing. You can hand deliver, especially if you're kind of old school. That is something that you can do. What about the communication? Now, we know everything. We went to the inspection. The listing agent probably does not know what we're about to present, correct? If they did, it would have been on the disclosure most likely. So they're getting new information. What are we doing to make sure that they understand that we're going to work together to get this process moving forward? What are you providing them? Anything?
Some inspections you can pull out clips of the whatever items that you're asking for remedies for. So you don't send the whole report. You can pull out, you know, the chimney needs to be cleaned or whatever, and you can pull that item out and send it over. Obviously, they're calling and or emailing them to kind of walk them through the options and why your ask is your ask. Why are you asking for those items, just to kind of clarify so they can relay that onto the seller.
That's very good. One of the things that realtors, in my past experience, really don't like is when another realtor sends a list of 20 things and says, hey, these are all the house is horrible, it's terrible, all these things are wrong, you really got to get your seller to take care of this or we're out of here, right? Now you're looking at that realtor thinking, are you the inspector? You know, why did you think this is wrong and this is wrong? Not having enough information becomes a problem. Okay, so it's very helpful. Now, that was Jeff again?
Yeah.
Jeff was suggesting that a lot of inspection reports, the technology now in those reports allows you to actually pull out certain aspects of it very easily technologically so that you can send a summary. If you don't do that, snip it. Snip the photo of the missing flashing on the roof, you know, with the description from the inspector, who is the professional, and send that along with your amendment. That is the least you should do, because now the realtor looks at it, who probably has some experience. They're seeing, yes, this is in fact a problem. So when they go to their seller, they're not assuming anything. They're looking at the actual problem. They see what it is. They see the summary from the inspector. They provide that to their client, and then they can get them to agree, yes, this is an issue. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and that's because the listing agent doesn't get the inspection.
Nope.
So when you're just those short little sentences on the amendment, they really don't know what you're getting it from.
No, not at all. And furthermore, if you're asking a seller to repair something, be an example, the insulation on the foundation is falling away from the foundation wall on the southeast corner of the property in the back of the house. Okay, what the heck does that mean? Well, you show them a picture of what that actually is, and all of a sudden, oh, I get it. They can send it to a contractor. The contractor said, that's easy to fix. Boom, done, right? So we're providing that information. Okay, this is just about what do we do in process here. We draft the amendment, send it over. When is that amendment finalized?
Signed by all parties and delivered to all parties.
Oh, who said that?
Jeff Engel, signed by all parties and delivered.
Okay, here's one, here's two. What are the two things that have to happen for an agreement to be valid? Signed, delivered, okay? You might want to make sure that the agent, please confirm receipt, right? At the end of any signed and executed, we call it an executed amendment, an executed contract. It's good when you send that over, please confirm receipt. Believe me, we've had issues before where people lose emails, they don't get it, time passes, all of a sudden we have a problem, right? So make sure it's signed and delivered. Go ahead, Heather.
That all has to be done within the period too,
Within the time period, right? So let's just say it's Paigey. So Paigey it's not Wendy, it's Paigey, okay? If it was Wendy, it'd be done 3 days in advance, but it's Paigey, and we've got a 7-day inspection period, okay? And Paigey talks to his client, but he talks for 3 days. And at the end of I love you, brother. At the end of the 3 days, Paigey's done talking with his client. And now we have it is, what day is it today? Wednesday? It's Wednesday. And our deadline is midnight tonight. The deadline is always midnight, by the way. So the deadline is midnight tonight, Wednesday. Okay. Paigey gets the amendment signed by his client and sent over to the seller you've done a great job with the summary, sends it over to the seller. Now the seller's got it, but his client's a dentist and the wife is a surgeon. And so they're not home until 7 p.m. Okay. What happens if they don't sign it and deliver it by midnight? What happens if we have a contract, an inspection amendment that is not signed and not delivered by midnight? What happens next? What's that? Go ahead, Jordan.
It's not valid.
What's not valid?
The items that you asked for.
The amendment. Okay, so what happens with the purchase agreement? What happens with the purchase agreement we already have in place?
It's a binding contract.
It is now, did you hear that? It is now a binding contract, and your buyers get nothing in response to the inspection amendment. So what is our protection for our clients? What do we have to do to ensure that our clients don't get in that position when you're asking them to fix $5,000 worth of stuff and it doesn't get signed in time? What do we have to do to protect our clients?
Fill out an extension.
Well, that's funny.
Of time period.
Okay, so he says fill out an extension. I've actually got my clients signed a cancellation of the purchase agreement, because if your clients do not cancel that purchase agreement before the deadline, that purchase agreement, as Jordan said, is binding and is moving forward without the inspection, anybody doing anything, post-inspection, right? So you are required, if you want out, if your clients want out, if they say to you, sellers do this $5,000 or we're out, you only have 3 options. Everybody signs and agrees to the $5,000, okay? They cancel before midnight, so you just have to sign and deliver that cancellation before midnight. That's it, okay? And then the third one is you sign and deliver an extension that gets executed and sent back to you prior to midnight.
So that has to also be fully signed.
The execution of the
The
has to be signed, the extension, yes, it does. So otherwise, we don't change the contract, right? So.
Or your clients can obviously move forward without option 4.
What was that, Jeff?
I said, or your clients can move forward without that fix, right? So
Oh, yep.
if it's not signed, your client can know the option. Like, okay, we haven't heard from them. It's 10 o'clock. We have 2 hours to wrap this up. They've gone radio silent. You can cancel, or we can move forward, and you have to assume we are not getting any of these items honored.
Yep, absolutely. That's good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Question for you. If the listing agent contacts you and says that I have spoken to the sellers and they agree they're willing to do it, just they're not able to sign, I will have it to you first thing in the morning. What should an agent do?
If you want the contract to be legal, is Jim here? If you want the contract to be legal, then you must have that extension executed prior to midnight. If they can't sign, they can't sign, so you do have a meeting of the minds, you do have an agreement together, and you can miss that date and then sign an amendment that's after. It's glitchy legally, because if anybody said, hey, I signed it after, they did sign it after. So that becomes a problem.
That's the importance of getting things done on.
That's the importance of not talking to your clients for 3 straight days. I mean, wrap it up. Right?
I'm always a troublemaker.
Always. Okay, so now inspection is passed and everybody's relieved, and then we just go to closing. Right? Is that it? The last thing? Okay, what's another major component that happens? What's next? Another big thing, usually the next major thing that happens after an inspection.
Appraisal.
Okay. Okay. Are we walking through which should we be? It doesn't matter, right? Listing agent. So listing agent, let's be on the listing side. We just get notification of an appraisal. Again, we are going to be good agents by preparing our clients for everything that could come up, right? So we know as realtors that there's going to be an inspection. We know as realtors there's going to be an appraisal. Let's just say you have a difficult client like all of ours, and they say right after you sign the contract, I'm packing everything up. Get the stager to take everything out of here. We're packing up. We're ready to go. I want to pack everything. Say the wife says, I want to pack everything. And the husband's like, no, wait, you have to wait. What are we advising our clients? How are we preparing them for an inspection and an appraisal with relation to the condition of the house when it's sold? Wendy?
It should be in pristine condition for appraisal. You want it to look like it is the most well cared for, pristine home possible for on the day the appraiser comes.
Okay.
And we prepare comps, and if you've received multiples, a spreadsheet of the multiple offers received is helpful as well.
That's interesting. So we provide comps. Okay, I want you to raise your hand, and anybody on Zoom, I don't know how you guys raise your hand, but do you always provide comps pre-appraisal for your listings?
For the appraiser.
For the appraiser. Okay, so 1 or 2 people in the room. Do you provide comps if the appraiser asks for comps? Yep. Absolutely, right? So I think what's probably going to be most common is that it's a fine line, because we're not appraisers And I have found that there are certain times, and someone else let me know if they have the same mindset. Similar to me, that would be unusual. But I have found that there are times when appraisers take offense to realtors attempting to do their job or help them with their job if they are very experienced at their job, especially in an area, right? And so we won't provide those comps unless the appraiser says, hey, they're really saying I'm overly busy. And you might have already looked and saw that you just sold this house for 80,000 over any comp that they could find in their quick search. So they're saying it would be helpful if you provided comps. Well, that's a heads up. 1, they're too busy. 2, they need help.
So are you talking from the listing agent's perspective or from the?
Listing agents right now. Yep. Buyers. Buyers.
Buyer wants to get appraised too, but yeah.
Well, it depends. If the buyer just paid 70,000 over for the house and they're not covering any difference in appraisal and purchase price, then the buyer would be pretty happy if it came in 20,000 low and they get to renegotiate price.
Yeah. What about, how do you know who the appraiser is? Are you always?
Okay, that's a good question. So let's just really briefly touch on how that works in residential real estate. So the lending company hires an appraisal management group. They can only talk to an AMG, an appraisal management group. That's it. They can never talk to the appraiser. So if you're working with
Zoe.
No, who is our lender here? What's New American Funding now? If you're working with New American Funding, okay, and Tanya orders the appraisals through a management group, then she's out of it. Okay. The good news is that the listing agent gets a notification on showing time who the appraiser is and when they want to go into the house. So we as listing agents know who that appraiser is. And if you've been in the business for a while, you know some of them, so you can touch base with them and be all friendly. You cannot, under any circumstance, influence the appraiser on value. Did you know that? We cannot influence the appraiser on value. Neither can the seller. Okay? So we told our clients, have the house in great condition. Wendy said, have the house in great showing condition, like you did for the second showing for the buyers who bought your house. Okay? That's perfect. Leave the staging furniture there. Leave everything set up, right? Can you be at the house during the appraisal? Okay, a couple people are saying no. Anyone else? Jacob, I think, is saying no. Okay?
I don't know.
Okay, so generally speaking, it is acceptable to be home during the appraisal. However, if a client is home, if a seller is home, they should be instructed not to attempt to influence the appraiser about the value of their house. Okay, that's kind of a key variable. If your seller's there, they want to bake the appraiser cookies, that's fine. They want to show them around, that's fine. Try to get them not involved, but they can't influence them on value. Can't say, hey, start pulling comps and doing all that stuff. Okay, so what is something?
Is that a legal thing? Is that like legally they can't influence the appraiser, or is it just like common knowledge not to, don't kick the dog?
Well, it's some sort of regulation, and I don't know if I would say, I don't know if it's RESPA, but it is a lending regulation that the seller and the listing agents are not supposed to influence the appraiser on value. So now by providing comps, you're providing comps, it's up to them, it's subjective. They can decide whether to accept or not accept those comps. But what you're not supposed to do is you're not supposed to tell the appraiser, hey, this is why it's worth this much more, and this is why you need it to be this price, right? Because again, that's their job, that's their responsibility. So
you don't provide, like, sometimes when they have the upgrades to the home that are on the supplements of MLS, you would not give that to the appraiser.
We do, because those are material facts that they can look at and subjectively decide. What you shouldn't do is you shouldn't take your client's numbers that list that $70,000 of improvements, list all of those, and then send it to the appraiser and say, you need as an appraiser to add this $70,000 worth of improvements to your overall value, right? Provide them information that could be helpful so that they can determine the value. It's their job and they're licensed to do that. Okay, moving on then. What is a really good piece of news that listing agents can get before an appraisal is scheduled about an appraisal It's something that happens in a market where, let's just say the buyer puts 20 or 30% down. What can we get notification? Maybe Tanya calls us and says, hey, I got some good news for you, Paige, about the upcoming, about the appraisal. We actually don't need to do one. Why? They got an appraisal waiver. That's important for you to at least know what it is. It's a very simple concept. The lender is going to have the appraisal management group or an appraiser do a quick research on the property. And if they come up with just a basic desk value of that property, and knowing that their client is putting 20 or 30% down, there's not a great enough risk for that lender to require an appraisal. And so they may say we're going to do an appraisal waiver. They're just saving their client between $475 and $600 on an appraisal. They don't have to do it. And as long as the buyer's like, yeah, cool, well, I don't need it, we're putting all this money down anyway, right? So that's pretty neat thing to happen. Okay. What do we tell our clients? Our clients are going to be like, hey, Rick, hey, Paige, we had appraisals yesterday. Are we good? Is it clear? What's going on? Do you know? How quickly after an appraisal do we have the response?
Quickly.
When I meet the appraiser with my packet, I ask them, how soon do you think you would be able to have this completed? And because I also asked the lender,
okay,
when is the completion date,
okay,
for this? So if it matches, then that's the date I follow up with the lender.
Okay.
And ask how was the appraisal? Keep me updated.
Hey, good. So when an appraisal is ordered through the AMG, the lender does note when the appraisal is due back. So when it's originally ordered, the lender knows they need a certain amount of time to process. So they'll order it today, for example, and what are we, the middle of the month? They'll say that we need it back by the 25th of August. Well, when the appraiser picks it up, it's due back to the lender no later than the 25th of August. And when the appraiser picks up from the appraisal pool, when they pick up that appraisal for your listing, they know that they have to have it in by that time, and they wouldn't pick it up if they didn't think they could get it in by the due date, right? So you can ask the lender, when is it due back? And they will tell you. Typically, an appraiser is going to get that appraisal done into the lender within 2 or 3 days of doing it. But nevertheless, you can always fall back on that due date. Then at least your client knows, be patient, we're going to wait. You'll hear by the 25th at least, right? So now, next thing that happens with the appraisal is the Paige is now the buyer and I'm the listing agent, and Paige gets notification from the lender first because he's representing the buyer that, hey, the appraisal cleared value, and not only that, but it appraised for $30,000 more than your buyer bought it for, right? How awesome. So he knows that. So he sends a note to me as a courtesy saying, hey, listing agent, just wanted to let you know as a courtesy that the appraisal cleared value. Paige, what is the appraisal amount?
It met the purchase agreement.
Go ahead, Mike. So I asked Paige to tell me what the appraisal amount is because my client wants to know. My client wants to know how good a job I did selling their house. Did I sell it for 30 grand under? What did it appraise for? Paige, you need to tell me. What did it appraise for?
It appraised at value.
Ooh.
At the purchase agreement.
Sufficient enough. How about it appraised at a value sufficient enough for us to move forward with the contract? It is my client's appraisal that they paid for, and they have not given me permission to share the appraisal value with you, Mr. Listing Agent and sellers. Okay? Because buyers normally won't. I mean, sometimes they're like, yeah, go ahead and tell them. But it's not our right to know what the value is. It's not our appraisal. It's the buyer's appraisal that they paid for. They paid Tanya for it, right? So, okay, good. All right, now, oh, thank goodness, appraisal's done. Now we can just go to closing. right?
Let's talk about if it appraises under.
Okay, so Wendy's like, yeah, this will, let's not move past it because we have all kinds of conflicts and turmoil to talk about. Okay. So the house is listed, Wendy listed a house at 500,000, okay? It's in Minnetonka, and it's 1,100 finished square feet, and it's a split entry. And it's outdated. Okay. She listed it for 500. She got 4 offers. She sold it for 510,000. Okay. The appraisal came out. Appraisal's like, you're crazy. It's a split entry in Minnetonka. Most expensive split to sell in Minnetonka at 1,100 square feet ever was 380,000. So they're going to appraise it. They're going to appraise it low. Let's just say they appraise it for 480. How big is our problem? It's a $30,000 problem right now, right? Okay, when is it not a $30,000 problem? When can the appraisal come in low and we as listing agents don't care?
When it's a cash offer.
Okay, that's, so somebody in the room said when it's a cash offer. Is an appraisal needed with a cash offer? No, because who's the appraiser? What is the appraisal? Who is it protecting? The lender, right? Okay. When do we not have to worry about it coming in 30,000 low?
If there's appraisal guarantee.
Okay, that's a great one. Wendy said if there's an appraisal guarantee. So Wendy has a good realtor. She got 5 offers. Okay. 4 of the offers said, yeah, we'll give you all this money. Actually, she had one of them. The offer was 520,000. It was 10 grand more. But Wendy has a very good experienced realtor because Paige is helping her. She decides to take offer number 2 because in the offer it says, in the event that the appraisal comes in under the purchase price, the buyer will cover the difference in either cash or alternative financing. And Wendy's like, sweet, because I listed this way too high in the first place, right? We already knew it was going to be a problem. So now this 30,000 doesn't matter. The buyer's got to come up with cash. Okay. So what if we don't have an appraisal guarantee? Now what happens? Beiji.
Well,
Right.
if, to answer your, first question, if, they're putting 20 to, more than $30,000 down, basically, 20% down, then, there is no worry that, it'll be financed. So whether it comes at 480 or 510, they still, would have to go through with it.
Okay.
But
That's an interesting concept because it does become up to the lender. There's a lot of reasons why people might be at 20% down. One of them might be that they have all the money and they just want to do 20% down instead of 10% down because they've got a bunch of money. Another might be that they're not qualified enough to do a 5 or 10% down because their credit is low and they are high risk. So now they got to come up with 20% down total. Okay, and if that's the case, they don't have the extra money, it's really easy for the lender to say, hey, because the lender is going to base the loan on whichever is higher, lower, the purchase price or the appraisal. We had a purchase price at 510. Now we have an appraisal at 480. This takes precedence. Now Tanya is saying, well, our loan is based on the 480. Okay, so the lender can say we can no longer qualify them anymore. It doesn't work, and so therefore they can get out. So do we need to negotiate at that point so that they don't back out as a result of financing? Yes. Okay. And what are some of our options for negotiating? What are we going to do? Say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, okay, your house is actually, according to an appraiser, worth 480. You can contest an appraisal, but you can only contest an appraisal if you have if there's a material issue with the appraisal, not a subjective problem with value. It has to be that the appraiser used comps for this house in Minnetonka that were in Duluth, right? or they used comps that were in New Prague or something like that. Or they comped it to a cabin, not a split entry, single family year-round house, right? So typically what we're doing is most likely thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna negotiate splitting the difference. How much can the buyer pay? Does the buyer still want the house? Seller was expecting to sell it for $30,000 more. Now they're going to sell it to you for less because we're finding out it's worth less. And we didn't cover the appraisal issues. So we're gonna negotiate with you. Buyers, if you can come up with 10 grand, the sellers will come down 20. Let's keep the deal together. Okay? Should you keep the deal together? What's the probability another appraiser, when you cancel this and you move on to someone else and another appraiser comes in, the probability of you having the same problem is probably high, right? So
is that what you would recommend for your sellers if it came back on your, as the listing agent?
that they would negotiate a balance? Absolutely. You got to get the buyer to pay as much as they possibly can. But Jordan?
I think it's interesting though. Sometimes like the bank, you'll give them comps and they won't renegotiate.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just say, hey, no, this is, or their lender's like, this is where it's at,
Yep.
even with the comps. But then, you can switch lenders and that can be a golden ticket. Sometimes, I guess it doesn't always work out, but it's worth exploring if you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
So you brought up a good point. If you guys heard what he actually said, it's important to know that what Jordan said is that that he did find material issues and different comps that would have worked a lot better. Not very subjective, like realistically these comps exist. So he was able to determine that particular appraiser did actually a poor job in appraising the house. And if that's the case, then you switch to another lender and another appraiser. You might get an appraiser to be more like Jordan and to say, hey, here's some decent comps. It's pretty straightforward that this previous appraiser that was appraising this house in Minnetonka, who is actually from Woodbury, that we might be able to get it at a higher value with a new appraiser. So good point. So
quick note on that. You can't do that on FHA, correct? FHA loans, the appraisal stays with the home. Is that right?
You can't do it on FHA?
Yeah, so that is actually a really good point. FHA and VA appraisals essentially are attached to the house for, I believe, 6 months. So there's a period of time in which if somebody else buys it, or that appraisal needs to be taken into consideration. So with conventional, it doesn't.
We got just a few minutes.
I know. So we're gonna have 2 minutes to talk about after appraisal. There's a few things we want to talk about. So this is popcorn. Tell us a couple of things, other things that have to happen before we actually go to closing. Okay. What else do we have? What else do our clients have to have in order? Let's say a buyer. Do we need homeowners insurance set up? Yes, you do. Do you need to know who the utility companies are? Okay. How many people work from home? About 50%. Wouldn't it be a good idea for them to know before moving into the house who their internet provider is? Garbage, maybe not a big deal, but internet provider, get it set up, right? Okay. What happens if you move into the house and you have not addressed utilities, but your responsible seller has? They shut off. Okay. They will turn off because the seller's done a good job, because Wendy's their agent and they have told all the utility companies to shut them all off at the day of closing. Okay. So gas and electric are going to go off probably the next day. Okay. So utilities are important. Closing is coming up. What are we telling our clients? I'll see you at closing. See you at closing. Show up at our office. Closer will be there. You don't need to bring anything. Just show up. Okay. We have a final walkthrough. Everybody does a final walkthrough, right? Make sure that the house is in the same condition it was in or better than when the day they purchased it. That's it. It's that simple. Okay. Make sure the stuff that's included in the purchase agreement as attached and in the contract is actually there, right? We could have another whole session on what happens at final walkthroughs later. And then, is it your responsibility to tell your clients exactly what to bring to closing, or is it their lender and the title rep to tell them what to bring to closing? Okay, so we have a few people in the room saying the lender and the title rep. Not a bad idea, right? Our lender is responsible for making sure that that client knows that either they are bringing a check, which we have a number of title companies that are not wiring right now at all. So there's a lot of issues with wire fraud right now in the last month. So a number of title companies are now switching over and saying, we are now taking cashier's checks again. So that's changing, and that's the lender and the title company telling your buyer what they need to bring to closing with relation to either a wire, to wire transfer the funds or a cashier's check. Okay? Good. Well, that's it. We got partway through again.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
a lot to
It's
it.
a complicated process.
Yeah.
It's a complicated process, but everybody, the more you do it, the more you'll learn, and there's a lot of people here to support, so.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was great. Very informative. I learned a lot. Guys, wants and needs. I know there's not a ton of people left, so if you want, certainly share them right now. But also, feel free, of course, as always, email Lydia, and she gets that email out. But does anybody have any wants and needs they want to share on Zoom or in here? All right. Thank you, Rick. That was great. That was very detailed. That was very informative. I think everyone learned a ton. And yes, send those wants and needs to Lydia and let me know if you guys have any questions or need anything. Have a good day.